Hey guys, Devil Crow this side. Wish you a very happy new year and I really hope that your 2026 is way better than your 2025. Today I'm going to settle an age-old question that has been on the mind of the God of War community for years. It has divided the people into sections who really believe that it could go either way. Of course, I'm talking about Old Kratos versus Young Kratos. Today I'm going to finally settle who's stronger and who would win in a fight. I'd like to make one thing absolutely clear before moving ahead. I will not be using any developer statements, interviews, or out of game commentary into account because it blatantly states who's stronger simply because of the fact that I believe that it's done for marketing intent, furthering the narrative, and for thematic implications, not for power scaling consistency. Think about it. If Cory Barlog stated that Kratos in God of War 2018 had not grown stronger than his Greek version, would you really buy the game? People would lose interest instantly. And they could not maximize on their sales figures. Furthermore, people use quotes from novelizations and end up misinterpreting them. It can also cause massive confusion amongst the audience. Like for example, Kratos stated in the novels that Baldur's blows were the heaviest he felt, whilst also stating in Ragnarok that he's killed gods far greater than Heimdall, who's definitely relative to Baldur in power. Using these statements and concluding that the Norse gods are superior to Greek gods and thereby concluding that Norse Kratos beats Young Kratos does not seem fair at all. So today I'm going to try and use the in-game feats that we see in canon, the proper lore statements and stuff such as item descriptions to aid me in deriving the conclusion as to which Kratos would take down the other in a fight and who's stronger. We're going to break down stat-wise. We'll use the following categories: strength, speed, durability and attack potency. So without further ado, let's start with strength, since it's the first thing that pops to one's mind when thinking about Kratos. After all, the guy's resume includes outmuscling beings predating the very gods themselves. Speaking of beings that predate the very gods themselves, we'll start with the Primordials. The Primordials are the beings who are responsible for creating the entire Greek cosmology. They were there before the Olympians and the Titans. It was their blows that resulted in the very creation of the Greek universe, and they were also said to be the very personifications of abstract concepts, like Thanatos being the personification of death. Now we are going to be using three Primordials for scaling purposes. Firstly, there's Nyx. Nyx is stated to fight Helios on regular intervals, so safe to say that the Olympians scaled to the Primordials safely. Then there's Uranus, who was overthrown by his son Kronos. A bloodlusted Kronos wanted to smash Kratos but was unsuccessful because of Kratos' own superior strength. Then there's Thanatos, who was overpowered during Kratos' time as the God of War before the events of God of War 2. Thanatos is one of those Primordials and Kratos beat him through brute force. Kratos also managed to fend off Atlas, the very same titan who lifts the entire Greek universe on his shoulders. And the Greek universe is made up of separate realms which are infinite in size, like Nyx's realm of darkness and the underworld. Kratos also managed to go blow for blow with Hercules, whose labors are canon in the games. If you know about the labors of Hercules, you'd know he sits in the same tier of strength as Atlas, since he too managed to lift the very same cosmology on his shoulders. Lastly, there's Zeus, who's easily the strongest god in the Greek mythology, save for Kratos, and his rage alone is known to shake the very foundations of the Greek universe. Kratos outmuscled him in the pure contest of strength as seen in God of War 3. So safe to say that Kratos' sheer strength sits in the multiversal to low complex multiversal tier, since he is able to overpower beings such as those discussed above. It's not just impressive, it's violently excessive. Now for Old Kratos, firstly I am not going to take into account that he flipped the 9 realms by flipping Tyr's temple, since it's open to a lot of misinterpretation. And I said I don't want to take blatant confirmations from devs into account, so we're not going to be using that, but worry not, we're going to be using something very similar. First of all, there's Baldur. Baldur was strong enough to go toe to toe with Kratos in their first fight, but Kratos was a bit rusty and holding back. He was also strong enough to 3-tap the World Serpent, who's stated to encircle the entirety of the realm of Midgard, which is infinite in size since all 9 realms are stated to be infinite. Kratos threw Baldur like he was throwing a baseball during the final confrontation and beat him bloody using his fists. Then there's Thor. Thor at his best was able to send the World Serpent in time by hitting him so hard that he splintered strands of the World Tree, which are stated to extend infinitely. Yggdrasil itself transcending space and time. Kratos then manages to defeat the very same Thor in contests of strength during the final fight, and it is even more impressive knowing that Thor was bloodlusted and Kratos was holding back. Overall, both when highballed give real trouble to each other, but I gotta give this point to Old Kratos, as I am also ironically a firm believer of just that one statement that when Greek gods grow older, they grow stronger. And I firmly believe it to be true because it's the case for Zeus as well. Old Kratos is stronger physically, but there's not a monumental gap between the two of them. So without further ado, let's move to speed. Now for speed, Greek Kratos. Greek Kratos' speed scaling comes from multiple showings against the Titans and the Olympians. First, we are going to use the underworld. The underworld is stated to be infinite multiple times in lore and supplementary material, and Kratos has gone on multiple business trips, traversing the 5-star rated realm of the dead on multiple occasions. Then there's Helios and Hermes. With Helios' light being potent enough to illuminate the entirety of the infinite underworld, Kratos was able to react to it pretty comfortably in God of War 3. Hermes is the god of speed and the outright speedster in that universe. He's able to dodge the very light of Helios, as if you use the head of Helios, Hermes would dodge it. Hermes was also stated to travel to the underworld and return to Mount Olympus on multiple occasions, and Kratos was also able to tag him. Then there's Thanatos, who is a primordial having said to exist before the concept of time itself, and Kratos beat him. There's Zeus as well. His thunderbolts were said to blitz Hermes pretty easily, and Kratos can not only dodge them but parry them and send them back to Zeus himself. Kratos is sitting very comfortably in the infinite tier of speed, but there's more. There are the Sisters of Fate as well. They can toy with and manipulate time to such a degree that they can erase realities of time and create multiple wanted outcomes. Kratos fought in their very dimension, which was not bound by the movement of linear time as he was fighting in the past. Maybe you can highball it to immeasurable speed, but let's keep Kratos in the infinite to inaccessible tier of speed for now. He also has gear like the Amulet of the Fates and the Boots of Hermes to further amplify his already impressive speed. Let's stack Old Kratos against this. Old Kratos might not look like it, but he's actually sitting in the same tier as Young Kratos. Old Kratos first of all fights with the Valkyries in God of War 2018, who travel to all the 9 realms which are infinite in size to guide the chosen dead to Valhalla. Kratos can not only keep up with them, but dodge their strikes pretty comfortably. Kratos then displays feats of speed against Heimdall, who has the ability to realm shift using his sword to create distortions in time, which causes it to slow down. Then there's Thor, whose shockwaves are powerful enough to travel along the branches of the world tree, and Kratos dodges them well enough during the fights and keeps on fighting. Then there's Odin. Odin can travel to any realm he wants to using his ravens, similarly to the Valkyries, and he uses them in his fight against Kratos. Kratos is easily scalable to infinite tiers of speed. There's also Ymir. Ymir, a powerful primordial being, was relative to Odin, as Odin killed him to fashion some of the realms in the Norse cosmology, and he also complements Kratos' speed feat since Kratos is able to dodge Odin's strikes. Now the speed point goes to Young Kratos in my opinion, as even without gear, he has much more consistent showings against speedster beings such as Hermes and the Sisters of Fate, with the Sisters being the fastest beings in the entire franchise. For this fight though, I'm going to give Old Kratos accessibility to equipment such as the Amulet of Kvasir, the Hilt of Hofud, and the Grip of the 9 Realms, to better compare to Young Kratos when fighting against each other. But depending on how you want to scale Yggdrasil, the gap can be reduced further. But the gap here is not massive at all. It's actually a very minor gap, and Young Kratos should be faster, but Old Kratos can keep up with him. It's just that Young Kratos has much more impressive gear, especially the Amulet of the Fates and the Boots of Hermes. Time for durability. Now both of them are very durable, and they can eat attacks from divine beings like it's breakfast, chew them out and act like it was nothing. Now for Greek Kratos, he firstly managed to tank some hits from the Blade of Olympus even when he was near death. The blade was the only thing that ultimately managed to kill Greek Kratos, but he's only grown more durable since that moment. First, he tanked hits from the Sisters of Fate, who have the power to change the literal outcome of the battle and have control over threads of fate that spanned all life and existence. Then he also managed to resist Hades' soul snatch pretty easily. This is the same Hades who managed to snatch Atlas' soul out of his body and belongs to the big 3 Olympians. Atlas is the very same titan who holds the Greek cosmology on his shoulders. Then comes Helios. Helios' power of the sun was a conduit set to destroy the Pillar of Life, which when destroyed could destroy the Greek universe as we know it. And Kratos managed to tank that very light on his face when fighting with Helios. Even before reaching Mount Olympus in Ghost of Sparta, Kratos purposefully took hits from Thanatos, the primordial personification of death, in order to keep his brother Deimos out of trouble. This was even before Zeus killed him. Speaking of Zeus, Zeus's attack potency belongs in a tier of its own, since with the Blade of Olympus, which really acts as a conduit of his true power, Zeus was able to one-shot an entire race of beings who overthrew the Primordials, responsible for creating the Greek cosmology. Zeus's thunderbolts also used to make Poseidon and Hades uneasy, which speaks to the gap in the brothers' power. Kratos took hits from Zeus and a point-blank thunderbolt to the face, and fell all the way from Mount Olympus to the river Styx. Despite all that, he managed to swim through a metaphysical river meant to erase those that trespass its nature, and came out only lamenting on his injuries. This Greek version of Kratos sits in the multiversal to low complex multiversal tier of durability. Durability is a department where Norse Kratos excels. Firstly, there's Baldur, who managed to 3-tap the world serpent, the very same serpent that managed to go blow for blow with Thor, having stalemated against the god of thunder at least once in lore. A holding back Kratos managed to tank multiple hits from Baldur and also ended up beating him. Speaking of Thor, with Mjolnir in hand, the guy could cause branches of the world tree to splinter, and Kratos managed to take that very same Mjolnir to the face in their last fight and brushed it off. It's the very same world tree that transcended space and time. Then there's Odin, who also has curses that makes use of the immense power of Yggdrasil, and I'm pretty confident that overall attack potency of Odin is the same if not greater than Thor. And Kratos ends up taking Odin's runic magic and spear with full force and was able to still keep on fighting. Also, to add Nidhogg and Garm to his resume, Nidhogg is a being who was like a caretaker of the world tree and had the power to create realm tears that distorted reality itself. Its spawn, the lean worms, are stated to have the capacity to eat the whole of Yggdrasil if left unchecked. And if the babies can do it, you can bet your fortune the mama can do it too. Then there's Garm the wolf. He has the ability to create realm tears of his own and can also chew apart the very fabric of the 9 realms, which are infinite in size. Both of these creatures were bloodlusted in their fight against Old Kratos, so they were trying their best to kill him. You can say that Thor knocked out Kratos and almost managed to kill him, but that was the Kratos that had gone through Fimbulwinter. His powers had become a bit diluted and he was also holding back immensely. So overall, I gotta give durability to Old Kratos due to more consistent showings of bouts of durability than the young one. But there's only a very narrow gap, not a monumental one at all. We move on to attack potency. First, Greek Kratos. Young Kratos brings a very versatile and capable assortment of equipment. He has the Blades of Exile, which are comparable to the Blades of Chaos, which have primordial flames in them, and we all know what primordials were capable of. He also has the Nemean Cestus, which compounds his already impressive striking strength. He has the Bow of Apollo, which houses the Flame of Apollo, which managed to incinerate an immortal island in the God of War comics. The Claws of Hades also have the ability to summon souls, whilst also containing the souls of Atlas and Hades to further complement Kratos' power. And he has the Nemesis Whip as well. But the trump card in young Kratos' arsenal is the Blade of Olympus, the weapon that one-shot the Titans in the Great War. Young Kratos was also able to one-shot Gaia, Kronos and Zeus when given the right opening, and it was the only weapon capable of killing base Zeus without his fear form. Combine that with the head of Helios, which houses the very primordial light capable of destroying the Pillar of Life, which destroys the Greek cosmology, and also lights the infinite underworld. Greek Kratos is sitting at low complex multiversal potency. I'm also not going to give young Kratos the power of hope, since if he has that, he'll just one-shot Norse Kratos and it'll be GG's for the world's greatest dad. Now, Norse Kratos. Firstly, his strength with his bare fists is powerful enough to damage the likes of Baldur and Thor. Then there's the Leviathan Axe, which is his main weapon, a weapon made specifically to counter Mjolnir, and it actually can, considering through multiple statements of Fae fighting against Thor and surviving because of the axe, and also Kratos himself using the axe to stalemate Mjolnir in its path. Mjolnir, just for context, is the very same weapon that is capable of destroying the world tree's strands, which transcend space and time. Then there are the Blades of Chaos, which have primordial level power in them as stated by Surtur. And lastly, the Draupnir Spear. The Draupnir Spear is much more of a versatility tool than a power tool because of its multiplicative powers and detonations, but it's capable of harming the likes of Heimdall and Thor, but I think it kinda holds lesser power than the blades and the axe. Also, considering that Kratos uses Dews of Yggdrasil to amp himself, his AP is increased more and more. The Leviathan Axe was also capable of leaving a permanent injury in Thor, so I'm pretty confident in terms of power and attack potency, the axe can match the Blade of Olympus. So Norse Kratos also sits in the low complex multiversal tier of attack potency, but since they are pretty evenly matched in terms of numbers and scaling, the decisive factor has to be of what other functions the weapons serve. The Leviathan Axe and the blades have elemental power, but the Blade of Olympus sits in a tier of its own. It's got power nullification, power absorption, immortality negation, and regeneration negation as well. So it's not just about the physical damage that the blade can do, it's also spiritual damage and can also depower Old Kratos. So just due to that, I gotta give it to young Kratos. He has much more gear both in terms of quality and quantity than Old Kratos, plus the hacks of his gear outclasses that of what Norse Kratos has. So attack potency goes to young Kratos. Before we move ahead, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a very happy new year. One of my new year resolutions is to give you the best possible content I possibly can in 2026. And to do that, I'd really like you to hit the like and subscribe button so that the channel can grow bigger and bigger. So strength goes to Old Kratos, speed goes to Young Kratos, durability goes to Old Kratos, and attack potency goes to Young Kratos. We got on one hand a guy that can hit harder and faster versus a guy who's physically stronger and can take a few more hits than the other one. Pretty evenly matched when looking at this statistically, so we gotta have the oldest angle in the book to determine the winner, the psychological one. Mindset wise, both Kratos belong in different spectrums. Young Kratos does not know the definition of mercy and hesitation whatsoever in a fight. The moment he steps into the battlefield, you are his enemy, and from the very first millisecond, he would begin adapting to your moveset and devising the quickest and most efficient way to behead you. And he also plays dirty. Young Kratos will cross lines that Old Kratos is just not willing to do, and this is where he has an advantage. Old Kratos also has his strengths, considering the fact that he knows much more about Young Kratos' powers and abilities than vice versa. He's much more experienced and skilled to take care of himself in combat. But just because he's much older doesn't mean the gap in their thinking is much wider. Because Young Kratos is often characterized as a mindless monster who goes on a rampage and manages to kill his opponents through sheer power and brute force, this, my friends, is a huge misconception. Young Kratos is extremely strategic. He never accounts for any other factors than win conditions. Young Kratos would have been killed by the Furies and would not have even met with Zeus had he been stupid from the get-go. He is what you might call purposefully lethal rather than miscalculated rage, because his application of rage and power is supplemented by quick thinking on the battlefield. Plus, he has more tricks up his sleeve than Old Kratos. You might argue that the longer this fight drags on, the better it is for Old Kratos since he is more adaptable in combat. But that is a very big what-if scenario considering that Old Kratos might not have taken enough damage from the Blade of Olympus. And also considering that Young Kratos has an advantage in the speed department, he'll definitely get some hits with the blade. And like I said, adaptation is also very arguable because Young Kratos does not always play fair like Old Kratos, who hesitates at first. Think about it. Greek Kratos' fight with Zeus, when he knew he was outmatched in terms of power in God of War 2, he resorted to trickery and acts out a ceasefire, causing Zeus to lower his guard, and without any hesitation whatsoever, Young Kratos shocks him and pins him down. If it wasn't for Athena, it was GG for Zeus. At least base Zeus, if not Fear 1. When both fighters are relative in power and combat, it's usually the one that refuses to hesitate at any cost of winning, in reality, when plot armor is not involved. In this fight, mercy is a weakness, whilst rage is not, especially considering it's the rage of Young Kratos. You can say rage can also be used by Old Kratos to amplify himself at moments, but that's all there is to it, mere moments. Whereas Young Kratos is constantly amplified by that. Restraint cannot be shown for even one moment when fighting such an enemy, who does not fight out of ego or misdirected rage. If I had to bet my money, it has to be on Young Kratos. I know it's not a popular outcome, but it's the outcome that is foreseeable, not because Young Kratos is stronger, but because he's stronger in areas that matter most in the fight. It's an outcome where Norse Kratos confronts the monster of his past, but the scariest part is that the monster still wins. After making this video, it is clear to me that if these two demigods clash, that the ghost of Sparta was never meant to grow old. Guys, this is the Devil Crow. If you liked the video, please hit the like and subscribe button and write down in the comment section who you've got winning this matchup. There is much more God of War content coming out. Please subscribe for that, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much and wish you a very happy new year.